The name Golden State Killer brings a sense of fear and mystery that still lingers even today. This was not just an ordinary criminal. He was one of the most notorious serial offenders in American history. His real name was Joseph James DeAngelo, but for decades he was known by several different aliases, including the East Area Rapist and the original Night Stalker. During the 1970s and 1980s, he spread terror across California, leaving communities in constant fear. What made his story even more disturbing was the fact that he had once worked as a police officer, someone who was supposed to protect people. The story begins with a series of seemingly minor burglaries around 1974. In suburban neighborhoods of California, an unknown man would break into homes and steal small items. At first, these incidents did not attract much attention, but over time, his behavior became more unsettling. He wasn't just stealing things. He was invading personal spaces, moving objects around, and leaving subtle signs that he had been there. This created a psychological impact on the victims, making them feel watched and unsafe even in their own homes. By 1976, the situation had escalated significantly. The burglar had transformed into something far more dangerous. He began entering homes at night while people were asleep, catching them completely off guard. He would tie up his victims, threaten them, and carry out sexual assaults. This phase of his crimes led to him being called the East Area Rapist. Law enforcement and the media used this name as they tried to track him down, but his real identity remained unknown. What made this criminal particularly dangerous was his level of planning. He did not act randomly. He carefully selected his targets, often observing them for days or even weeks. He studied their routines, learned when they would be home, and chose the perfect moment to strike. Sometimes he would linger around neighborhood for hours, checking doors and windows to find the easiest point of entry. This level of preparation showed that he was highly organized and methodical in his approach. For the victims, the trauma was not just physical but deeply psychological. The Golden State Killer often played mind games with the people he targeted. In some cases, he would make threatening phone calls before or after his attacks, increasing their fear and anxiety. Victims lived in constant dread, not knowing if or when he might return. This psychological manipulation was a key part of his behavior, as it gave him a sense of control over his victims even beyond the actual crime. One of the most disturbing aspects of his crimes was how he targeted couples. He would enter a home and first subdue the male partner, often binding him and placing objects on his back as a warning not to move. He would then assault the female victim while ensuring the male partner remained helpless. If the man tried to intervene, he would be threatened or harmed. This calculated approach demonstrated not only his cruelty but also his need for dominance and control. Around 1979, his crimes evolved again, becoming even more violent. He moved to Southern California, where a series of murders began to occur. This phase earned him another name, the original Night Stalker. Unlike his earlier crimes, which involved assault and terror, these attacks ended in the deaths of his victims. This escalation made the case even more alarming, and investigators struggled to determine whether these crimes were connected to the earlier incidents. At the time, forensic technology was limited. While evidence was collected from crime scenes, there were no advanced tools to analyze it effectively. DNA testing as we know it today did not exist, and investigators relied heavily on witness descriptions and physical evidence that often led nowhere. As a result, the case remained unsolved for many years. Communities continued to live in fear, locking their doors more carefully and becoming suspicious of strangers. Meanwhile, Joseph DeAngelo was living what appeared to be a normal life. He had a family, a job, and neighbors who had no idea about his dark past. This double life was one of the most chilling aspects of the case. By day, he was just another ordinary citizen, blending in with society. By night, he had once been a predator responsible for unimaginable crimes. This contrast made it incredibly difficult for anyone to suspect him. After 1979, the crime suddenly stopped. This created another layer of mystery. Investigators were left wondering whether the killer had died, been arrested for another crime, or simply chosen to stop. For decades, the case went cold. Victims and their families were left without answers, and the fear slowly turned into unresolved trauma. Everything changed in the 21st century with advancements in forensic science. DNA technology revolutionized criminal investigations, allowing old evidence to be re-examined in ways that were previously impossible. In the case of the Golden State Killer, preserved DNA from the crime scene became the key to solving the mystery. Investigators used a relatively new technique called genetic genealogy, which involves comparing DNA samples to public genealogy databases. This innovative approach led to a breakthrough in 2018. By analyzing family connections and narrowing down potential suspects, investigators identified Joseph James DeAngelo as the likely perpetrator. He was arrested near Sacramento, California, shocking the entire nation. For decades, he had lived undetected, and suddenly he was revealed as one of the most feared criminals in American history. During the court proceedings, DeAngelo eventually confessed to his crimes. He admitted to multiple murders and dozens of sexual assaults, bringing a sense of closure to many victims and their families. In 2020, he was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. While this outcome provided a form of justice, it could never fully erase the pain and trauma experienced by those he had harmed. The case of the Golden State Killer is not just a story about crime. It is a reminder how dangerous individuals can hide in plain sight. It also highlights the incredible power of modern forensic science, showing that even decades-old cases can be solved with the right technology. Most importantly, it is a story about the resilience of victims who waited years, sometimes decades, for justice. Even today, this case continues to be discussed and studied. It serves as both a warning and a lesson. It reminds us that evil does not always appear obvious and that justice, no matter how delayed, can still be achieved.